going through the VE items and talking to the district and the school. And so just these items like the nurse equipment, the gym equipment, steam, and then custodial were kind of the bigger pieces that had changed slightly from last week. Again, just based on our communications with the school. So our grand total where we are sitting currently today, you can see just down here that grand total, $1,565,108.69. So it's a
Yeah, with the
rough,
difference, with the
yeah.
delta of 165,108.69. I think we've been projecting thus far, we would be in the 165,000 range. So is this the final tally that you have, Chris?
Yes, this would be it.
And the delta, we would propose to take it from soft cost contingency, move it into the FF&E line to cover the delta.
And what would that leave us for a contingency, Vivian?
I do not have that. I apologize. I do not have that specific information in front of me at this moment, but I'd be happy to share it with the school building committee, the EFPBC, through email.
Okay.
I apologize. We submitted the dashboard last week and I just didn't memorize the number for today.
Yeah, I couldn't remember from the dashboard if you were already encumbering something like 1.6.
No, we haven't encumbered it.
Or
We've
excuse me,
left
the delta, that's what I meant. I couldn't
Yeah,
remember.
no, we haven't.
Okay.
We did not encumber it until this meeting for approval before we even shift the money from contingency to the FF&E line item.
Are there any questions? I guess for Chris, can field the questions. Anything?
So Jay and Vivian, are we looking for a spending authorization? Excuse me, is it a spending authorization or a funding authorization, given where we are with this package?
I think it would be a funding authorization since the package has not been officially submitted yet, or, we haven't, Chris Sharkey and TAPE team has not moved forward with procuring or the furniture vendor and the furniture equipment. So I think it would be a funding first, and then not sure if the mechanics would mean then afterwards we would come back to you, or at this point allow for the allocation of $165,108.69 to be moved from soft cost contingency into the FF&E for the delta.
And when you say soft cost, you mean that's owner's contingency, right?
Correct. That is owner's contingency.
So Jay, if it suits you, I'll make a motion on the fly here. I don't have anything. Oh, Chris Sharkey has his hand up.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make one thing, just to note one thing that Chris, we had talked about the third floor outdoor furniture, right? And then potentially some planters. So those pieces are removed from this, just because those are more in the kind of the landscape realm of things. Our Stefura was just having a little bit of a hard time. That's kind of outside of their wheelhouse. And so I'm working with Warner Larson, our landscape architect, to track that down. So that would just be a separate thing that we can discuss at a certain later point, but just want to make that clear.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, Chris Sharkey and I had a conversation on Friday, I think it was. The days are blurred. On Friday, looking at it, that kind of a little bit of lessons learned or insight gained from doing the Watertown projects, that those outdoor furnitures are better suited, being spec'd from the landscape architects for durability purposes versus the FF&E interior furniture art consultant. And Chris had already started initiating that with Lauren Larson, so it just made better sense to do it that way.
Got it.
Okay.
Are you happy for a motion now, Jay?
Sure.
So I moved to authorize funding for furnishings for the Lynch Elementary School project as presented on January 6th and January 13th to the EFPBC in the amount of $1,565,108.69, of which $1.4 million from the budgeted line item, the difference of $165,108.69 made up as a transfer from the owner's contingency.
Second?
Second.
John, thank you. All right.
Yep.
Okay, roll call on this. Frank?
Aye.
Lisa?
Yes.
Brendan is not here. I do not see Todd. Nope. All right. Geetha?
Yes.
Okay. Colleen?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
Richard?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And Emily?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And FYI, there's 291K left in the soft contingency for
Thank
whoever asked
you.
that question. Yeah.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you.
All right.
And as mentioned, we have not encumbered it yet. We were waiting for official approval before we do. So next month, when we present our dashboard, you'll already see the allocation made. Thank you, everyone. And next item on our agenda is to move forward with the technology presentation. I'd like to invite Advance, who from them is Doug Faria. If you wouldn't mind sharing your screen, and Chris Sharkey, if you wouldn't mind stopping yours so we can do so. Doug will be presenting the technology components for this project.
Yes, hello everyone. Let's see if I can bring this up pretty easily. Okay. Right, just give me a moment. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes, and if you wouldn't mind putting, there you go. Excellent, thank you.
How's that? Okay, great. All right, well, thank you. Thank you for your time this evening, everyone. I'm Doug Faria with Advanced Technology Design. I am the principal in charge of this project on the technology side in conjunction with TAPE. And what we're going to be doing tonight is just giving an overall update of where we are on the technology equipment planning and procurement process. We have essentially 5 categories of technology that we'll be procuring for the project. First is the network electronics. That's essentially the backbone electronics that makes the overall network work. It connects the cabling infrastructure that's in the base contract to the outside world, if you will. The wireless network, which consists of the Wi-Fi throughout the school. The phone system provides telephony services throughout the building, classrooms, admin offices, etc. Interactive display technology, which consists of primarily interactive flat panel displays in all of the classrooms. And then finally, we have computing devices, which is essentially teacher devices, computers, Chromebooks, iPads, and various peripherals, such as docking stations. So the last thing we pretty much procure during this process are all of the loose equipment items that are really in flux from a technology and pricing standpoint. So we'll talk about what we're planning on doing and what we're prioritizing next. But I just wanted to make it clear that these are the items that we're going to be looking at procuring over the next, I would say, couple of months, as opposed to everything else, which is going to be procured over the next month or so. what we're looking at, what we're seeking approval on this evening is really an initial procurement of the network electronics and the wireless network. It's really important that we get that equipment in sooner than later because a lot of the building systems are dependent upon the functionality of this system. So you have everything from the building management system to the security systems, the lighting control systems. All of those systems are network functionality dependent. So what we've done is we've prioritized the network along with the wireless, and we've gone through the process of actually producing an RFQ. We've sent it to LCN, who's on state contract and is the town-wide network vendor. And what we've received in terms of pricing from LCN is that bottom number of the network and wireless. That's $446,469.88. I need to move you folks here. You probably can't see your cells, but you're right over my numbers. Okay. So where does that leave us overall in the budget? That's what this little spreadsheet excerpt is on the right here. The network switches and wireless is highlighted at the $446 some odd thousand. That I would consider core equipment, what you really need for a functional school. The voice over IP devices, which is the next blue highlighted row, that's essentially the telephone system. We have preliminary quotes on that, informal state contract quotes from Valley Communications, who is the school department's voice over IP vendor. That number of 110,000 reflects that preliminary quote. The technology equipment, teacher Chromebooks, USB-C docks, et cetera, that's what those items are. Those are the items that we'll be procuring last. The total on that is $443,964.70. We've already, again, obtained preliminary pricing from Connection for all of those devices, and that's what those numbers are reflective of. The audio-visual equipment at $354,800, that is an estimate right now. We are going to be sending an RFQ document to a couple of state contract vendors, hopefully by the end of this week, if not the very beginning part of next week. And we expect to get final pricing on that equipment by the end of the month. And then we have some other miscellaneous equipment that doesn't really fall into necessarily a category. And we've got $16,394 there. The total budget estimate, which includes a 5% estimating contingency, is $1,461,210.01. The project technology budget is $1.5 million. Again, that includes, my estimate includes a 5% estimating contingency. So I feel like we're pretty safe in terms of the overall budget. I will note that all of that technology equipment you see in the center, that is all being installed by the school district. As a direct result of that, we've experienced some real cost savings here. I would probably estimate the installation of all of that equipment is probably somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 worth of services. So I think that's a big plus that Andrew and his crew are actually taking that on. I'd also note that we did order a few sample products. We are looking at some countertop storage and charging for the student Chromebooks and student iPads. So we want to make sure that everything fits properly before we go and purchase 35 of these devices. We want to test a new Chromebook with a new countertop storage and charging device, make sure all the connections are correct, and iron out any potential wrinkles before we go ahead and order everything. So just to reiterate, what we're looking for tonight is approval for moving forward with LCN off state contract in the amount of $446,469.88.
Okay, we'll open up for some questions. Thank you. Oh, you're not done. All right.
No,
Sorry.
that's okay, Jay.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is just a quick summary of where we are in the on the overall schedule. Finalized equipment quantities and scope is complete. Finalized hardware specifications and draft RFQs, that is complete. We're on that third item, January 2025, which is in process, which is, of course, issuing RFQs to state contract vendors. February 2025, we'll be evaluating quotes. That will probably include the final quote for the technology equipment from Connection, and we'd be looking to issue purchase orders. I have it as February, but usually February, March timeframe is more than adequate for a typical August opening. March through May, we'll generally be coordinating with vendors and manufacturers for schedule, making sure that there aren't any hiccups in terms of them obtaining equipment from distribution. So we track that pretty closely during that period. Other than that, it's generally pretty quiet on the technology side of things. And then things really pick up, usually beginning in June and August. We'll start with the network installation. So like I said, we want to get that in as soon as we possibly can. So we'll be tracking the readiness of the MDF and the IDS, which are essentially the technology closets where all of that networking equipment lives. And all of the other equipment, particularly the technology equipment, will be coordinated with the FF&E deployment schedule. So final installation will occur in August. We'll be working on our punch list and scheduling training and assisting Andrew with scheduling training for primarily the interactive flat panel displays, and some other equipment will have some training as well, but it's primarily those IFPs that require some training. And then warranty items, as soon as you start using all of this technology in September and October, things will generally pop up, hardware failures and those types of things. We do everything we can to mitigate that. We require the vendors to test and commission all of the systems, but nonetheless, you do have some things that creep up in September and October. Okay, Jay, now.
All right.
Now
Emily's up first.
Here's your moment. Now,
All right, Emily.
I do understand there are some questions on the audio visual systems in the school as well, and we can talk about that as soon as we kind of get past this part, I was thinking.
Yep. Emily, do you still have a question?
Yeah, sorry for
Okay.
my screaming toddler in the background. The final training for the teachers, is that going to be by you guys, or is that going to be by the vendor that you award it to?
Sure, Emily, that would be provided by the vendor that we award that contract to.
Okay, then I just ask that when you're doing your RFQ process that you buy in a couple different training sessions, because I feel like if they train in August, the teachers are all moving in, they'll be a little frazzled, and they're definitely going to need someone to come back as they're settling. So I just want to make sure that you buy in a couple trainings.
I completely agree. And the way we generally like to structure training is to have that preliminary training session that initial training is really basic. It's, how to turn things on, how to get things functional. And then we always schedule a follow-up training, usually after teachers have been using the technology for a month or so, not just as a refresher course, but also to cover some of the more advanced features and functions that are available on the technology. That way staff doesn't get over inundated with information on that initial training. You at least want to get functional for the day one start of school. And then once they have a chance to play with the technology a little bit and really develop their own style of using the technology, then we'll schedule that follow-up training. And it's already structured that way, Emily.
The only maybe Doug, the add I would do is also making sure that it's videotaped, because some teachers might not be there in attendance and can watch the videotape later, or sometimes, seeing it once isn't enough, that you need to kind of go back and refer to.
Thank you, Vivian. That's already in the RFQ.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Chris.
Yes.
Thanks, Jay. Doug, thank you for the presentation tonight. couple of process questions for you before I get into the weedy stuff.
Mhm.
Just so I understood it tonight, since a week ago, I don't think the committee was expecting this presentation. I know Jay, I think, got it out on Friday. I think I heard you say earlier, the only real urgency tonight, if we have to pick one, is the 446, 469 for the LCN scope network switches and the wireless network. Is that right?
That's correct, Chris.
Okay. And then on one of your slides where you've got the 4 bullets, the tech budget, current estimate, the estimating contingency, can you just clarify, because I don't think I didn't see the 5% contingency carried anywhere as a line item. That 5% is embedded in all of those line items. Is that right?
It's actually the way the function works is this right here, the 1.56, takes the sum total of all of these numbers and multiplies it times 1.05.
So then, okay, so thanks for the clarification. So then my next question, and you can probably anticipate it, is do we need a funding authorization for 446 tonight, or do we need it plus 5%?
No, I think the 446 number is fine.
That's
I
a good
think-
number.
So yeah, as we go, I'm a realist, right? So it's I always say we always like to have a contingency.
Yeah.
Because things change. There are always these unforeseen circumstances that come up, not just during construction, but during equipment procurement and especially deployment. So I always like to have a 5% buffer in there. And then, at the end, if we don't use any of it, it means you can buy more technology.
Okay, so for this line item, though, you're comfortable with that figure?
Yes.
Okay, and then I have a question, and this may be more for Andrew Marin. 445 Chromebooks, 225 student iPads. Can we just clarify for the committee what grade levels? I mean, if we carry our average 20 kids per classroom, that's just enough Chromebooks for grades 1 through 5. So who can somebody just clarify what grade levels are using this technology?
Yep.
I'm assuming the iPads are for the younger kids.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, the iPads are more at pre-K and K. And then we're also carrying iPads for some of the use around the art classes and for STEM, I believe, or the STEAM. And then you're right, the Chromebooks for the upper grades here in the school.
Okay. And Doug, I also I'm interested in some understanding before we break up tonight, what our approach is for assisted listening devices for these kids. I know you said you're prepared to speak to that in a moment, and that's not sort of expressly included in this. So I think my questions are answered. Thanks, Jay.
All right, Lisa?
Hi, sorry about that. I just had click myself here. Yeah, I just curious about this whole thing as far as not just listening devices, and I'm glad you brought that up, Chris, but also has the technology been looked and compared for various adaptive equipments for students with disabilities like the FM loop, JAWS naturally speaking, or Zoom Tech? Have you put that all in this budget, and have you looked into that for it? Especially as we roll out this, this last part of the technology for students with disabilities. I really think we need to really look into that to make sure that what we're purchasing is going to be appropriate for students with disabilities as well. So that was just my question and just a thought in the process. Have you looked into that at all, Doug? I mean, is that something that you're doing with this technology or no? Just
Well,
wondering.
Sure, Lisa, everything I've done has been in conjunction with the school district. So I've really taken most of my marching orders from Andrew and the overall technology plan in the district. So I can't say that there's any specific assistive technology built into this technology equipment plan right now. I can say that in every classroom we have a Lightspeed TopCat audio system, which will connect to the interactive flat panel displays. So anything a teacher connects to that interactive flat panel display will come over the Lightspeed TopCat system. In addition to that, there will be a couple of wireless microphones that can be used in the classrooms to connect to that amplification system that'll be in the ceiling. And then finally, there's also a wireless media connector that is integrated with that whole system that has an audio out where you could take an FM transmitter and connect it to that audio out if you had a need for an assistive listening device in a classroom.
Frank, do you want to jump in on that also and help out?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I could. So that's a great question, Lisa. We carry a separate technology line in the operating budget for special education technology. What we really ask, our goal is to make sure that what the work that is done in the building provides, kind of universal design and would be compatible with any devices that we might have. But if there are students who have individual needs, just going back to Chris's comment or question around iPads, I mean, we have students in special education programs who may, as part of their IEP, or even a group of students who may even not be in their IEP, but we find that we have applications that are helpful for them. We purchase those on our own as part of our budget, and that can change year over year. So we're kind of on the hook for anything that's specialized. Our goal is to try to get as close to universal design as possible so that everything will work. Obviously, we always like to not have individual kids kind of stand out if there are infrastructure things that can happen within the classroom that can benefit all kids. And Jay, if I could just ask a question also, back to Emily, I think it was Emily who asked the question, which is a great one around professional development and training for staff. So you also, I'm assuming, have built in time with our IT people, our IT team, because once you guys are gone, as you know, 1 or 2 trainings great, but it'll be that ongoing support that we can provide with our group. And would they have continuing access to vendors if needed?
Frank, that's a question for me, I assume.
It is a question for you.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Good. The answer is yes. So there's also IT training involved and included in the RFQs, in addition to end user training. And we also included a number of hours of post-installation support. And that's outside of everything that's required to get these systems functional. It's really just to kind of be there to provide some hand-holding after the fact, if and when it's required. So the answer is yes to all of those questions.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions?
So Jay,
I have a
and
general
Vivian-
question probably for Andrew and stuff, but do we go through and evaluate what's at the Parkhurst now and spread it amongst whose needs it at the rest of the schools? What happens to everything that we have at the existing school? Does it get surplused?
All right. Yeah. So a lot of that equipment, we expect to take back, and sort of we can use that throughout the district, like all those projectors or devices. And then some of the furniture we'll be storing, and the remaining that may be older or past usable life will be surplused. So.
Andrew and his team has done a great job inventorying everything that we have. Everything is barcoded, so we know exactly what we have, and we'll redeploy as we need to. And I feel like, Andrew, if we can maybe just work in a lamp for you, you could expense that as part of doing business here. So
like this ominous look.
It's like film noir over there, right?
All right. Any other questions?
If it's in order, I'm happy to wing another motion.
You going for the whole thing or just the network?
No, just what Doug presented. I think it's important we get that out of the way. And I think, are we missing some members tonight?
No,
We are missing a few members.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. If we could approve the network and the, wireless portion of it for the $446,469.88, it'll be able to have an advance, get moving on it, and all of those components are necessary, as he mentioned, to move forward with the project. We come back afterwards as more numbers are solidified and present for the other components and purchase as needed.
So I'm happy to make a motion, maybe just on the condition, either Vivian or Doug, when we're done with this, maybe just take a little time with us and give us some examples of some of the technology that it's actually not on this list to be found anywhere because it's in the base budget, like the Top Cats I know Doug just mentioned. There's a lot that's going into the building that we're just not going to see here because we basically already bought it. So I will move to authorize funding in the amount of $446,469.88 from the technology equipment budget for network switches and wireless networking as presented.
Second.
We'll give it to Frank. He was first. Okay, we'll do a roll call. Lisa?
Yes.
All right. Geetha?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Colleen?
Yes.
Mark? Richard?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And Emily?
Yes.
All right, great. That gets going. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So, Vivian and Doug, can we just hear a little bit more
Yeah,
about
that's what I was gonna ask.
where we stand on some of the other assistive technology that we would never even see on this list? And I don't know if that's something Frank or Andrew want to speak to about, how that's been scoped out. I think there are some questions about that.
Sure. Well, I described the classroom systems, which are the Lightspeed TopCat systems.
Yep.
The other two systems that we would want to discuss would be the gymnasium audiovisual system and the cafeteria audiovisual system. So both of these spaces in the base contract, this is already owned under Griffin's scope. Their subcontractor is the Oakers Company. Both of those systems are full turnkey audiovisual systems consisting of projection system and audio enhancement for both voice and program audio or music and those types of things. So as part of those systems, integrated with those systems are assistive listening systems. And they are essentially, they take the audio output from the digital signal processor. Instead of sending it to an amplifier, they send it to a transmitter. And it's an RF-based or FM transmitter. And what happens is the FM signal, the frequency is distributed throughout the space. And anyone with either marginal or severe hearing loss is given either, everyone's given a receiver, which is about the size of a beeper, if you guys remember beepers, right? It's can sit in a pocket or it can be used in a belt pack. And then depending on who the user is, they would either be given, in addition to this receiver, a headset or a neck loop. And the neck loop is essentially, it creates a magnetic field. Instead of putting the headphones on, what it does is using that magnetic field, it connects to the telecoil in most hearing aids. So as long as a person with a hearing aid has a telecoil, better known as a T-coil, it can receive that magnetic field and communicate with it, receive it, and transmit it as audio into the user's hearing aid. That's pretty much how it works.
So Doug, can I just jump?
Yeah.
Should I clarify? I may have missed a preposition from you there a moment ago. So are we providing both an FM system that requires, let's say, occupants of the auditorium, cafeteria to have a device around their neck, or are we providing that wired loop system that supports T-coil? As I understand it, those are two different approaches, are they not?
Well, there are two ways to look at the T-coil. So the induction loop system that you'll see at a large auditorium or theatrical marketplace, a lot of times that's built into the building itself.
Right.
Okay. So a lot of times, most of the time, it's built into the slab if it's on grade, or it's built into the floor. I've seen it in walls. It can get a little interesting based on the construction.
Right.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking
Okay.
about, so it transmits in FM, it transmits in RF. And then you have an RF receiver, which is that little device like the beeper that I described.
Yep.
And then you either plug in a headset, like a regular headset like you'd use on the plane, or you take an induction loop, which is kind of like what you would put into the floor, but you plug that into the receiver and you wear that around your neck. And that's what communicates using a magnetic field with the T-coil receptors in hearing aids.
I got it. That's where I lost you for a second. I heard you
Okay.
say loop and you're just talking about an individual one.
Yeah,
thing
it's a neck
where-
loop as opposed to a fully
Yeah.
installed induction loop.
So Jay, as you know, we had some strong community sentiment on this issue for the auditorium at Winchester High School, where we actually did put the wire in the floor, Doug, so
Okay.
that folks with T-coil enabled devices would be able to tune in. And what we heard from many parents was some concern around either fidelity or reliability of the FM system. And maybe things have changed since 2018, but we heard that the FM systems are susceptible to interference, electromagnetic fields, et cetera, and just generally really advocated for the loop. And some EFPBC members will remember it was painful. We actually got a grant, put the loop in the auditorium, and then when we came in to renovate the building, the loop was actually ripped out. It was completely destroyed, and it was like 18 months
Oh,
old, so
boy.
we had to buy a second one. I just feel I feel I have to ask the question, Jay, and I don't know if it's really a fair question for Doug or for Vivian or for Frank and Andrew, perhaps even Lisa. It's outside my wheelhouse. I'm not really aware of sort of the fidelity of the technology today, one option versus the other. I know to put in that large loop in the space is not inexpensive.
No, it's not.
In some instances, it can
right.
go six figures, right?
Right. Which is generally why, especially at the elementary school level, I mean, I even at the high school level, you don't see a lot of induction loops built in, just primarily because of cost. And the other, you're looking at pros and cons. You also have to consider the fact that, you have to, if you want to use the system, you have to obtain a receiver. You have to obtain the neck loop. You have to obtain the headset. So
Right.
It's not always there. It's not always ready to go. There's a step involved for someone who's hearing impaired to actually get, accommodated essentially.
And do you feel like the technology as it exists today with the FM system that you've described, has the technology changed at all in terms of either clarity, fidelity, reliability for these elementary kids?
Honestly, I have never heard a complaint on an FM based system.
Oh, okay.
So this would be the first. And that's not to say that it's incorrect, because I think it's a much more seamless system to go with the built-in induction loop. There's no doubt about it. And you are less susceptible to things like propagation and, interference.
Right. Well, it's a good conversation for us to have, Jay, so we're clear about what we're getting and what we're not,
Right.
given our experience on the high school.
Can I?
Lisa has a question. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Lisa.
well, I've used both these systems, and what I can tell you about the one you're talking about, Doug, the only drawback I have on that is with what I found is that when I worked in my clinical practice, when we had that type of system going, if I had somebody who was hearing impaired in a different room and I was using it with a client that I was working in a different room with a closed door, that client in the other room could actually hear the frequency of the one that I was doing. So that's the only thing. It's sort of,
Oh, okay. Well,
so that's my
that's-
concern about that, because I know it does happen.
Right. So the transmitters have multiple frequencies. That would be a problem, but that would also be a problem with your wireless microphones too. So you have frequency hopping technology. I believe the specified transmitter comes with, I don't know, it's like 15 different channels that it can operate on. So you should not have any issues, like if you have someone who's hearing impaired in the gymnasium, the cafeteria is right next to it. You should not have the issue of cross interference.
Okay. I just know I've had
If I'm
problems,
understanding
but
if
that's
I'm
just-
understanding it
yeah.
properly.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was discussed at the high school also between that and the small breakout rooms.
Mhm.
Okay. We'll get into more depth anyways.
Yeah, the other thing is, I sent Andrew, when I responded to, I don't remember, was it you, Chris, that sent the email asking about it? A lot happened in the past, like 2 or 3 hours on this issue, so, I gave Andrew all of the parts and pieces that are, being provided on this project as part of that those 2 assistive listening systems. So feel free to do it if you're interested in doing a deep dive. I could check the number of channels, but I know it's at least 15 channels.
Okay. Any other questions for Doug? Nope. Thank you, Doug.
You're very welcome. Pleasure seeing all of you, and thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
So Vivian, overall, we're under budget if you put the FF&E and the technology together, right?
Yes, in theory, but unfortunately, MSBA does have them separate line items and reimbursed separately. It is also a point to note that, while this project has been in progress, we've had 2 funding agreements that have increased the reimbursement rate as well as the reimbursement amount for this project. But in all the years, in the last at least 5 years, if not beyond, the MSBA has done a really great job of trying to maintain and keep up with the rate of inflation for construction, for consultant fees, and all of the other ancillary, and providing more substantial reimbursement. But the one line items that have yet to change has been the FF&E and the technology. So, with cost of materials and everything's going up, that I'm glad to see that for the technology, at least, that there is a little bit of contingency built into the number already, as well as it's currently slightly under budget. But I want to kind of caution us from moving or using or any reallocating that funds until it's time to actually make the purchases.
Yep. Okay. We're going to have a meeting on the 27th, and then we have 3 scheduled for February 3rd, 10th, and 24th. The 10th is just in there in case we need it. We got a lot of stuff to get done in the next 2 months. All right. A little bit over schedule, Chris.
When does Vivian expect you want to come back to the other items that were in Doug's presentation tonight, these other line items?
So I think the drop dead date for some of these items, if I'm paraphrasing from Doug, and Doug, please do jump in with more of a concrete date. He said it was towards the end of February. So if not by the 10th, by the 24th, if Doug is, based off of the RFPs and the responses and the actual dollar amounts, if we're comfortable with those in presenting it on the 10th, I would look to present it then, so that way we have the adequate timing for it to evaluate the quotes and issue some of the purchase orders. Because I think
we should try for the 3rd, Vivian, in case we don't need the 10th.
Yeah, I'm just worried
You don't think
that
you can do it?
Yeah, I think that it might
Okay.
not be enough time, given the fact that today is the 13th. By the time the RFPs are out and responses for them, the 3rd might feel a little bit too close.
Right. Well, that's what the 10th's there for anyways.
That's right.
Yeah. It'll be a quick meeting. Similarly, we might do again a split one where we present the remainder of the materials being requested, and then give the committee some time to digest the information and come back the following meeting date for an approval.
Okay. Anything else? Get a motion to adjourn?
So moved, 6:47.
Second.
Thank you, Geetha. All right, Frank?
Aye.
Lisa,
Yes.
John,
Aye.
Colleen,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
Emily.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night.
Night.